All right, we're going to get started. And first, we'd like to thank all of our panelists, Emily Dietrich, Michael York, and Casey McGee from respectively the class of 16, 19, and 17 for joining us this evening. I'm Ken Anderson. I'm going to be facilitating this. I'm from the class of 2017 as well, and law school class of 2020. So this event is typically held usually actually at the cellar on campus where I have beer instead of water, and it's a full room, and we're not looking at you through a computer. But we're doing things differently because of COVID this year. And this panel basically is for you guys to just give us all of the questions that you have and that you need answered as you've just graduated or you're about to graduate. And if you're moving to Richmond, sort of what you need to know to be a successful post-grad spider in Richmond. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves in a second, but also before we start, just to let you know, there's a Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom window, and you're able to ask questions to any of us. And again, like, you can ask us anything. This is supposed to be candid. It's supposed to be casual. Be real, right? Also, just putting in a plug for the alumni Instagram account. It's at Richmond Alumni. So make sure to follow that page, and you can find out all the great things that are happening, COVID or non-COVID. All right, so we'll get started in introducing our panelists. I'll quickly introduce myself, and then we'll go to Emily. Like I said, Ken Anderson from the class of 2017, graduated with a major in leadership and American Studies, and then attended the law school, graduated in 2020, and have been pretty active in the alumni organization since. So we will jump to Emily.
Hello, my name is Emily Dietrich. Like Ken said, I graduated in 2016 from the business school, and I live in Richmond. I grew up in Richmond also, so I've been here for 26 years. I grew up in the north side of the city, and then I lived in Glen Allen right after I graduated for a couple years, and then now live down in Chesterfield, so have kind of seen the suburbs of Richmond. And what I work at EAB, so I work with a lot of universities and colleges and admissions departments, and I am pretty involved with the athletics. I am a season ticket holder for basketball and football when we're able to go to sports, and I'm also involved in a lot of the alumni organizations. And then I'll pass it over to Casey.
Hi, everybody. Like Ken said, I graduated in 2017. My major was American Studies, and I minored in Rhetoric and Communications. Right now, I am a kindergarten teacher, but right after I graduated, I worked in commercial real estate for a couple of years, and then went back to grad school, and I am now teaching. And I go to some games with Emily sometimes, so that's always fun when sports are obviously available.
All right, Mr. York.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael York. Some of you may know me as Tyler. I went by Tyler when I was at school. Graduated class of 2019, studied leadership and PPEL, politics concentration. I now work as a Virginia Management Fellow for the Commonwealth of Virginia. So it's a rotational program. You get to be in all kinds of different state agencies. You take one graduate class, you get a certificate. It's been a great learning opportunity for me. I'm originally from Hampton Roads, which is an hour away from here, the Richmond area, but my dad's family's from here, so I've spent some time around throughout my life, and it's really great to be here with you all today.
All right, excellent. Thanks again to our panelists, and let's get started. So anybody can answer at any time, and again, for all of you watching, again, if we don't cover a question, make sure to submit it to the Q&A, and we'll see if we can answer it as quickly as possible. So let's start with the first one. So everybody, what was your best classic Richmond coincidence or chance encounter or connection since you graduated? Anybody can start.
I actually, last summer, I went out for, I believe it was, no, it wasn't in the summer, it was in November. I was out for a happy hour with one of my colleagues in the fellows program. We were at Chennai, and it was a random day. It was the end of October, maybe early November, and we were there. And then just like slowly, just mobs of people started coming in to Shanae, and I recognized every single one of them because it was homecoming weekend, and there were just so many spiders filling up the restaurant that night. And it was really good to see some old faces, and Alex had to meet some folks in the spider family. So it was Alex is the name of my colleague, and it was a really just interesting opportunity. It happened completely by chance, to not plan to be there specifically that evening. So it was really cool.
Cool.
One of mine was actually, I have certainly had a lot of similar experiences to Michael, just being in the area and people coming back for homecoming or just random weekends wanting to come back and see the city. One of mine that I'll share is actually in a job interview for my current position. I was being interviewed by the last person, and I told him I went to U of R, and he said, "Oh, you must know Molly." And I was like, maybe, like, what is her last name? And he couldn't remember her last name. And he's like, "Oh yeah, she's really great," and like basically described everything about Molly, but I could not put two and two together because I didn't have a last name, and he obviously didn't know anything she did in school. And then it actually turned out that, so I basically left my interview and had no idea who this person was that he tried to explain to me for like 20 minutes. And on my first day on the job, Molly Adams-Check, who I worked with at the gym at U of R, and was good friends with, was actually on my team, and is who he was talking about the entire time. And it turns out that my company has a lot of U of R grads, which I had no idea beforehand. I thought it was just one person that I knew. So it's really interesting being able to make those connections, before a job interview, but also even once you've gotten the position, and see how many U of R grads are with you as well.
I don't know if my answer is necessarily that random, but I worked with someone on my like graveyard shift, you could say, from 9 to 11 at the music library. We didn't really keep in touch, I guess, after we graduated, but then I saw her, at a random brewery in Scott's Addition, and then we just made a point to keep hanging out and trying to go to homecoming and go to things like that. So it's just the little connections, I think, that are good, that people that you didn't think would be in town that stayed around. And there's also a bunch of UR stickers on cars in my apartment building, so trying to, if I see anyone wearing a shirt or something, I try to say something.
When they make all those puns about weaving your web, you really do run into somebody, especially when you're in Richmond. You can go anywhere in the city, and that's sort of a heads up from personal experience. Always be on your best behavior, because you're going to run into people, right? Whether they're professors and you're out and about, or they're former classmates. So thanks everybody for that. We'll jump to the next question, and it's, what's the best way to meet new people in Richmond? So I'll just jump in really quickly and say that I have some good friends, and this is kind of difficult with COVID, but there's a lot of sports leagues that happen throughout the city. So it's always good to get involved in those, and you can meet new people who usually you're going to find somebody that you went to college with, but also just some other people in the neighborhood. And depending on where you live, and if you live specifically in the city, it's pretty easy to get to know, your neighbors. And it's funny how small the world is. So you're always going to be able to make a 1 or 2 person away connection with, random people that you don't know. So sort of the comforts that you had on campus transfer to the city. So I'll pass it to somebody else. Anybody else want to talk about best way to meet new people?
I'll kind of answer it. So Ken kind of stole my answer. I was definitely going to say sporting events and sports in general. Like he was saying, there's, pickleball leagues, there's dodgeball leagues, all the sorts. And a lot of times that's a good way to meet people not in the Richmond bubble, or not the people that went to U of R. But another good way to, similar to what Casey was saying, like reconnect with spiders, or, meet spiders that maybe you didn't know beforehand that are still in the city, is through a lot of the events that the alumni organization puts on. I know obviously this one we couldn't do in person to meet more people, but there will be more. I've been graduated for almost 5 years now, which is is really sad to say, but there have been a ton of events in the last 5 years. And every time I go to one, I meet someone new that I didn't know previously that's still in the city of Richmond, or I reconnect with someone that was my year that I might have known when I was in school, and are able to form those relationships even more.
Did we cover all the bases in meeting new people, or?
I was just gonna add, I was trying to figure that out too. My first few months after I graduated, and I found this may not be for everybody, but I had friends that would sign up for events on Facebook Local, and so I would just see that there's like, oh, there's this Oktoberfest festival going on, or like, oh, there's this group is meeting then, and like this person's interested in this event. And so I would, through the friends that I already had on Facebook, see that like folks are going to certain events around town. And I know this is COVID, so obviously that won't be happening as often. But in the future, I mean, whenever events come back or if the events are virtual, I'm sure that, if you just check Facebook Local, you might find something interesting in there and have an opportunity to meet some new friends.
Cool. Okay. We'll jump to the next question, and it has to do with living and where to live. So where do you recommend that somebody new to Richmond moves in who went to U of R? Any neighborhood recommendations?
So I would say it really depends on what you like to do. I feel like I like to go to the new bars and restaurants for fun on the weekends. So I chose to live in the Fan because of that. But if that's, not your scene, then you're probably not going to enjoy it here because there's, a new bar on every corner. So I think just figuring out what you want to do, and then, obviously using your resources here for the people that are in the alumni organization. And really just looking at the different neighborhoods and what you're interested in, because Emily might know about the suburbs better, but if you like to do more outdoorsy stuff, then living closer to the river, like in Forest Hill or something like that, might be better for you.
Yeah, and I can speak a little bit to the complete opposite of the Fan. So I didn't want to be in the hustle and bustle of the city. And I know some of you might be from bigger cities, but to me, Richmond is my big city that I don't want to be in the middle of. So like I said, I grew up north of the city in the suburbs. And so now I live south of the city in the suburbs, and it's still really close to everything. And I think that's one of the big pros of Richmond, is that no matter where you live, you are still close to things. It's like a 10-minute Uber to get anywhere pretty much. So whether you do want to live in the Fan and be, in the bar scene or things of that nature, that's great. But you can also take, a 5-minute Uber or bike ride down to the river, or you can go further out to go on more hikes and things. I really think that no matter where you choose is a great option. You just got to make sure you take advantage of the things that are around you. And if what you're looking for is not there, just make the effort to go, because there's so much that Richmond has to offer. It's just taking advantage of it.
And I'm definitely one of those big city people too, who does think that Richmond is sort of a smaller city where everybody knows your name. But there is sort of there are a few middle ground neighborhoods where you can walk to sort of the parties of the Fan, if you will, while still having some peace and quiet. So I live in the Museum District, so about 6 or 7 minutes from the VMFA, and I'm still able to walk and I happen to love walking. So I can walk pretty much to Monument Avenue, to the river, to the bars in the Fan, and there's no issue. But I can walk home, and it just gets quieter the further west that you go. So that's nice. Also, sort of neighborhoods like Churchill are close to sort of the Shockoe Slip, where again a lot of nightlife is and a lot of restaurants are, but you have a little more quiet. And then, like Casey was saying, close to the river. And if you like if you need a yard, then Richmond's got tons of suburbs. And
Ken started to touch on it, but I actually originally started in the Fan. That was the first neighborhood I moved to after graduation, and it was an interesting experience. I think there's definitely a culture that's in the Fan that already exists, so you got to kind of understand that when you move to the neighborhood. It's a nice community, but a lot of my friends who are newcomers to the city, they really a lot of them just moved straight to Scott's Addition. That's where I remember we were doing a lot of alumni events actually there last year, and there's just a plethora of breweries. There's 2 barcades, maybe 3 now, and it's a fun neighborhood. And there's like a lot of different living options over there. I just personally moved to Shockoe Bottom, which I think is the bee's knees. Like I really do enjoy it down here, and it's for me since I work for the government. Like if I needed to just stop to like meet up with a friend on the way home, that was the idea at least before COVID. But like if I needed to stop to meet up with a friend on the way home, there'd be a place to stop on the way home. It's also super walkable. I walk to my coffee shop like twice a week. And a lot of newcomers, like my friends from back home too, also moved to Shockoe Bottom just by chance. I don't know if that's the brand they've been going for here, but that's what I've seen.
Cool. All right, so lots of options. And I guess building on sort of the housing conversation. So do any of you still have roommates? And if so, how'd you find them? Any recommendations with that?
My roommate just went to he was my roommate. I lived with him for 3 years while we were at Richmond. We first lived together doing an SSIR in Lakeview like back in 2016. And he just went on to grad school at Berkeley. I'm very proud of him. But I've got my own place now, so finding a roommate. People use Lindsay's List. I find that people use Lindsay's List to find roommates. That's the best and only solution I actually have off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was gonna say the exact thing. Is Lindsay's List is what I've heard is a lot of people find roommates through. I lived with my parents for a year after I graduated and saved up, and now I live with my boyfriend. So I did not find him on Lindsay's List, but you can find many people to live with on Lindsay's List.
That's the line of the night.
Yeah, I mean, I have never had a roommate because that's just how it worked out. I would have liked one, after college because that's what you're used to. But I would third Lindsay's List. That's the best place. And that's also where I found a couple apartments as well. So.
And I guess I'm the only one here with a roommate. So we went to law school together. So we met through the housing office at U of R. So that worked out. But again, sort of, you can always, I can't say always, but you really have to sort of learn, your fellow classmates, habits and lifestyles. And if you find people that you wouldn't have necessarily known in college and you're comfortable with trying something new, never hurts to reach out to fellow spiders and attempt to live together. And, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And it's definitely a person-to-person decision for sure. Moving along with the questions. So it is COVID and things are clearly very different and we don't get to go to all of our favorite restaurants anymore or as much. And you have to wear a mask everywhere. So have you been having fun in spite of COVID? And if so, where are we going with our masks, of course, and our hand sanitizer?
This past weekend, I went to Brambly Park, I think is what it's called, in Scott's Addition. I had never heard of it. It was actually another Richmond grad suggested that we all go over. It's a dog park also, which I don't know if you can get any better than that. But basically they have wine, they have food, they do brunch. And then there's like 100 dogs that just want to be pet. So it was the best idea ever. But there are a lot of different places that you can go that have the outdoor seating. And I think that's where I've taken the most advantage of. There's Hardywood. There's so many breweries and wineries that have outdoor seating that either have food trucks or that have different restaurants inside. But there's so many areas. And if you're an outdoorsy person, the James River, it's like the perfect time to take advantage of everything that it has to offer. There are a ton of walking tours just in general in Richmond. There's a lot of history here. So even just I think there are certainly free walking tours, but you can even sign up to get like an audio tour so that you can listen to it through your phone. It's on an app, I believe. But it just takes you through some of the history and what Richmond has to offer through there.
And, since COVID started, building on what Emily said about being outdoors, I feel like sort of two things. So number one, I feel like that the city park should just like kick me out at this point because I could stake a claim where I spend a ton of time on the VMFA lawn. They allow you to bring your own food out there so you can have sort of picnics with your friends. And I think their cafe is now open, so you can buy stuff there. But also walking and running through Bird Park and Bryan Park and Forest Hill Park, all of Church Hill's sort of smaller parks, really good places to be. And also there's some events sort of within the Richmond metro area if you want to expand Richmond to sort of the Shenandoah. We are only, an hour and a half away from Shenandoah National Park. So that's, great hiking and great fishing. And we're an hour away from, the Tidewater, where again, there's great fishing. And let's see, also Charlottesville has a lot to offer too. A few weeks ago, I went to the polo match outside of Crozet, where it's at a winery and you get to watch polo, which I'd never seen before. So perfectly socially distanced activity where you can bring 5 or 6 friends or whatever the minimum is for, or maximum is for spending time with people and get outside. All right, so this is probably the hardest question on the list, everybody. Just brace yourselves. If you had to choose one Richmond restaurant to eat at for the rest of your life, what would it be and why? And if you cannot think of one, just give a top 3 and we'll forgive you.
So I would say Sidewalk, Sidewalk in the Fan, just because one, again, I have a very special story. I ran into my favorite professor there by chance when I was driving home from an internship. But I don't think he goes there anymore because I think he found out that students know about it. So like he's got to have his private life now. but yeah, Sidewalk is great. And actually they are now officially a Sidewalk cafe. Like they wrap around the side now with the string lights. And I would say I would eat there for the rest of my life because you could, like, the menu is enormous and it varies from like Greek food to, straight up just burgers and fries. And it's a wonderful spot. So please treat it well if you ever visit it. It's a great place. It's a great place.
I would second Sidewalk if you like brunch. I've been there for every meal, but Sidewalk brunch is something that you have to do if you move to Richmond. I don't know if they're having brunch now, but hopefully it can come back. But it's like Tyler said, it's a special place. But I would also say I really love Fat Dragon. I don't know if that's like kind of a common answer. And well, I guess I shouldn't keep going on because it's only the only one that I would eat for the rest of my life. But I mean, Richmond's special in that it has so many good places to eat. You'll never go hungry, truly. Yeah.
Yeah, and mine, I have 2, so I'm cheating. But my first one would be the Daily. I love their food, and their pimento cheese dip is like the best thing ever. But I would also do the Grill for comfort food. I've heard there, like, some people are diehard the Grill fans and some are not, but they're also doing takeout. So, and I will actually, something fun to do during COVID, a bunch of my friends and we were really missing sports. And so we all did takeout from the Grill and just went to X-Lot and ate food and just like chatted. So that's another idea to do, but building off of the Grill being one of my favorite places to eat in Richmond.
Nice. And my favorite place to eat at for the rest of your life, eating at this place, I would not live very long. But lunch, supper, brunch, that whole trifecta, everything, there's bacon on everything. It's delicious. It's Southern food. But also just to sort of, and I'll cheat since I'll use moderator's privilege, just a few other great places that are sort of around the city. Joe's Inn is always a favorite. Ito Squid for Italian food. Stella's, which is Greek food. Mama J's, which is soul food. There's a ton of different places throughout the city that, like Casey said, you'll never run out of options. So, all right. So this might also be a tough question. What do you like most about living in Richmond still, and what do you like the least? And if while you guys are thinking, I can tell you, I guess the best and the worst part. So the best part is that wherever you go, you're always going to see somebody that you probably know or have seen before. So there's some comfort in that, and it's a big enough city where you can still be an individual and do your thing, but at the same time, you're always going to, be able to talk to somebody in a restaurant or talk to somebody at a coffee shop or whatever. And then probably the thing that I like the least is, I'm a northerner, so it's very difficult to find good bagels here. And we do have one good bagel place, and it's Nate's in the Fan. But other than that, you have to drive to Charlottesville to go to Bodo's, and it's not enough variety for me.
I've got to say, Richmond's got one of the best things. My personal favorite thing is we have local shops and businesses galore. Where I come from, we have a very suburban main drag where it's a lot of franchises and everything like that. And here, like, I can go to my local coffee shop and I'll see the same barista, or I'll like go down to, I don't know, when I just go to different restaurants, and you'd only find a restaurant like that here, and that makes it special. It makes it worth coming back to visit and everything. But I suppose the other, what is something that makes it difficult? I find it it's nice to be able to run into your friends and everything, but then when you're trying to just kind of like, I don't know, you're all a recent grad, so like when you're just trying to go about your life and like start over and start new, it can be a little challenging. But you know, that's a pro and a con in one.
Um, you guys said really good ones. Um, I would say that I think the best thing about Richmond is that, like Ken said, it feels like kind of a smaller city, in that, it is very familiar. And everyone, I guess because it's sort of in the South, everyone usually, has a pretty nice attitude. I think, when you're walking around the neighborhoods, I walk my dog a lot, and everyone's just, hey, how you doing? When you don't know them, but it's just, the nice thing to do. So I think it does feel kind of homey in that way. And I think that it's also funny that there's a lot of characters in Richmond, and I say that in a good way. Just, the people that are like the die hard like river rats, you could say, or like the people that are like, I feel like people just latch onto a cause in a good way. And they like their ride or dies for their like local Richmond thing that they love. And so I think that that's just really fun to see, especially when you see them out, around at the different festivals and like street fairs and stuff. I would say, I guess my least favorite thing is that I think it's easy to not branch out. I think you guys kind of already touched on that, but like, it's like for a while when I first graduated, I found myself going to like the same like 2 places every weekend. And I was like, I really got to branch out and try new things. Just because it's like when things are good in Richmond, they're really good. So it's hard to try new restaurants or like, go new places. But I think there's also a lot that Richmond does have to offer. And I think, like I think Emily said earlier, if you try to put yourself out there, you'll find a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah, I will. I'll start with my low so that we can end on a high, but it picks off of what Casey was saying. Especially if you're from Richmond and then went to school in Richmond and now living in Richmond, it is very easy to stick to the same few things and to that same mindset. It's very easy to think that there's not a lot to do in Richmond. If you stick to the same things, you're obviously only going to see those. So I would really, urge all of you to try and branch out and try something different. There really is, and I know we've all said this, but I just want to reiterate it again, that there's just so much that Richmond has to offer if you seek it out. And if you're bored of something, then just find something else to do. Like there's certainly not a shortage of things to do here. And that kind of leads me into my high, is that Richmond has so much to offer if you look for it. We don't have a huge sports. We don't have, an NFL team or anything like that, but we do have the University of Richmond sports. We've got the Richmond Kickers. We've got a baseball team. There's certainly, sporting events that you can take part in. If you are an athlete, you can go take part in any of the sports leagues that we mentioned earlier. I am a runner, so I have certainly met a lot of people through the running community. And there's just really so much that you can do. If you like to stay in, there's tons of things to do to stay inside as well. So I know I feel like I've said that the whole time that we've chatted today, but it really does. And if you're looking for things to do and can't find something, the Richmond alumni is here to help. And I know Ken put a plug in for the Instagram, but you can always just message the Instagram, and they will be able to suggest something for you. So we're always here to help and here to help people explore new things.
And also, just you made me think of something, Emily. So Richmond is a really good music scene for the size of the city. So live music, once we're allowed to be congregated close and jumping up and down and rocking out or whatever you do at a concert, there's a lot of great sort of bigger places. You've got the Broadway, you've got the National, where you can see sort of national acts. And then you have sort of smaller places like your Carey Street Cafe, where you can listen to jazz on a Sunday night or listen to sort of an alternative Grateful Dead cover band, whatever floats your boat. So we did get a question in the Q&A. We'll go to that. And somebody asked, what are the best day trips or road trips from RVA? And I'll just jump in really quick. Charlottesville is one of my favorite places to go, but also I fish. So going east to, all the different, like we're really blessed to be that close to a coast and the Chesapeake Bay for things like that.
And I'll say a lot of U of R grads end up in DC, and that is a very easy day trip, whether you want to go visit some friends or if you want to go to explore yourself. But depending on where you live, it takes anywhere from like an hour to an hour and a half to get up there, depending on traffic as well. But it's a really easy day trip, and there's so much that city has to offer as well.
Charlottesville and DC are both great. I personally love going to Charlottesville for day trips. I just yesterday for Labor Day made a day trip back home to Hampton Roads, where we have lots of, in addition to Virginia Beach, which is the large and popular beach that everyone goes to, I'll argue that we have small and underappreciated beaches all around the 757. And if anyone would like to check them out, there are numerous beaches down there, more than just Virginia Beach. They all have their own vibe. And while we still have some sunshine left, I'd recommend going and check it out. There's some nice things to do. In addition to fishing, there's good fishing.
Y'all pretty much covered all the big ones, but I would say things that people don't think about are like the little small towns that are in the surrounding areas. So I teach in Petersburg, which is 30 minutes south of the city. And it is very small, so you can spend a day there. But there's cute antique shops, there's a brewery, coffee shop. So if you, especially now when we are stuck inside and our options are limited, if you want to take a little trip, just to drive around to a cute small little town and just kind of see something different, there are a lot of options like that. So.
And I have to throw in, now that you said that, a few weeks ago, I hiked the Shenandoah, and all of the towns before you get there are great. So, and then some that are sort of off the beaten path. So like Barbersville has a really nice main street and terrific barbecue there as well. So sort of if you just sort of go for a drive on a Sunday or a Saturday, you're definitely going to find something new. Also, just again, if anybody has any questions in the Q&A before, so that we're not talking too much when we're actually answering the questions that you guys want, just feel free to put it in, but we'll keep going. All right. We've touched on this, I guess, on restaurants, but in general, what are the must-sees and do's for Richmond? If you were making a bucket list for 5 things that you have to do in Richmond that aren't necessarily restaurant related, what would you do?
I'm glad you asked. I actually just pulled this out a moment ago, but it's not necessarily restaurant related. But I got this hat. It's the Richmond Beer Trail hat. There's actually, if you want to shake it up and do something new, and maybe if you have friends and maybe it's not COVID, I don't know. But like there's a list. You can just go to one of the. I can tell you which place. There's a lot of places that participate. You can just go to one of these places. And they'll give you a brochure, and you can literally just go and make a map. And then when you finish the map and you get 5 stamps, they'll give you this hat. It's a free hat, and it's great. And my friends and I all got one. We wear the matching hats sometimes when we hang out. It's a little corny, but we enjoy it. And it's fun. That's a must. That's a must do.
If you guys are still thinking, well, go ahead, Em.
One of the things I was going to say is it's a little bit outside of Richmond for the people that do the official tour, but you can certainly do it by yourself. But it's basically tubing down the James. So you can, if you want to just rent your own or you buy your own inner tube, you just put in pretty much wherever and just kind of float down the river for a day. I know it was a really popular thing to do this summer since people were trying to social distance. When you're in the water, you're fairly social distancing. So being able to do that, and you can bring a cooler, and it takes as long as you want it to take. But there are a couple companies that do it just outside the city, and then you can kind of float into the city if you want and end up down there.
And I would just add the museums. I think the VMFA obviously is the big one. And then the Museum of History and Culture is also a fantastic museum, and there's always great exhibits there. And then there's also the Valentine, which you do have to pay for, but it's not that much. And that's a really good museum about Richmond specific history. And then obviously the Civil War, the museum at Tredegar is a really great, thing to do too. So if you're into history or art, there's a lot of other things, and I'm sure I'm missing, smaller things in Churchill. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunities there as well.
Go for it, Tyler.
If I could add one more thing, there's actually a rather impressive trail that goes through a lot of the riverfront parks in Richmond. And I just during COVID kind of discovered the extent of it, but you can actually follow and then there's little labels here and there, but starting from maybe around Rockets Landing, maybe around Chocolate Bottom, you can walk along the river, through the canal, across Browns Island, across the Potterfield Bridge, or you could even walk up starting somewhere near Oregon Hill, and you can walk across. And there's a very lovely trail that goes behind the Hollywood Cemetery and everything. And it's good good outdoors action. I found it to be very therapeutic and relaxing and fun to walk it.
And I'm pretty sure that trail actually goes beyond the city limits. So you can get to, I might be saying this wrong, but Williamsburg, as far east as Williamsburg, and then it keeps going west too. So I think you can get close to actually where campus is, if not further. Highly recommend that. Also, I was going to play PBS, the educational way too, but Casey took most of my answer. The Richmond battlefields are actually really cool. I just went to them for the first time and living here for 7 years. And again, great exercise because they're really just big parks. We do actually have a few more questions in the Q&A, so we'll jump to those. The first one was, what are some recommendations for low cost or no cost activities around RVA? We're definitely saving up. I'm not a student anymore, but I'm very recently a student, so I look for free. Some events where sometimes you do have to drive to get to them, but often the outdoor events are the best low cost activities, and places where Richmond is great in that you can bring your own food to a lot of places. So you get to eat exactly what you want for the cost that you want. And usually all you have to do is bring friends and a cooler if you choose. There's a lot of freedom with that. Low cost things, the Flying Squirrels when they're playing. So that's the baseball team here. Those tickets, I'm from Philadelphia. So a Phillies ticket, even a really bad nosebleed you're going to be spending $30-$40. And I think that the top Squirrels ticket is $15. They have really reasonably priced hot dogs and wine slushies and beer, and everything's oversized food wise. So, you're in good shape there.
One thing that I would suggest if you like riding your bike or walking even, I know Michael mentioned there's a ton of hikes and things to do around, but the Capitol Trail, which is I think what Ken and Michael are talking about, it's about 60 miles, so 120 if you want to go there and back, of just trail, and it's all paved. So I know there's a ton of cyclists that go out there and ride, and there's also a lot of runners that go out there too. So it's just basically a big paved trail for you to go on. So certainly take advantage of that for a low cost or really no cost if you already have a bike.
I think there's a little known petting zoo in the back of Maymont as well. I don't know if it's quite, I've never pet any of the animals there, but I've been back that way, and it's a lovely walk through the park, and it is technically low cost. You can leave a donation if you want. It's like sort of a semi-private park, but it's a public park. And then you walk the back. They keep birds. They keep. I'm told that we have a Metro Richmond Zoo somewhere, but that's been my experience with like animals that people can go and pet is the one that's at Maymont.
Maymont has a bear, if I'm not mistaken. So a bear and a mountain lion that kind of walk around in their enclosures. And the last time I was there, I did not see the bear, but I'm ready for that day. Were you going to say something?
There is also the botanical garden. I'm not sure of the price because I went there and I used like a teacher discount. But it is absolutely beautiful. And I'm pretty sure they're open now, because you can walk around and be distant from the other people there. But I mean, it's huge. I went and walked around and my Apple Watch was going off because I closed my rings. And I mean, it's just gorgeous. So I definitely recommend going there, especially, when it gets a little cooler.
And two things, and we're actually going to move into the next question in what I'm about to say. With sort of low-cost places within the city, there's also just a lot of great cheap eats as well. And there are, if you Google cheap eats in Richmond on certain nights of the week and non-COVID times, you can probably eat for under $20 going out to dinner with tip, and you have, let's say, a drink with it. And you can find something that is good. I have a favorite spot, curbside in the Fan. You could have 3 beers and a burger and fries and be completely, happy with yourself, for less than $20. So that was always nice on Wednesdays and the before times. But the question, and this is what sort of leads into this, is any recommendations for a favorite brewery or place for cocktails? So Richmond's got a ton of options for that. Anybody want to start?
I'll start. I feel like there are so many options that, I mean, it's hard to find a bad place. I mean, it just depends on like the area that you want to go in. So Scott's Addition obviously is going to have a lot of beer because they're known for breweries, but there's also a lot of places that are popping up that have cocktails. Like the Hop has a rooftop. And then Tyler mentioned earlier the barcade, so you can go and like play skee ball and get beer from the tap on the wall. So I think it just depends on like the price point you're looking for and the atmosphere, the vibe that you're looking for. And I mean, like Ken said, there's places that you can go and get like a $5 beer. Like if you wanna watch a game or just hang out with people, you can get really sort of any experience in Richmond. It just depends on kind of what you want. And also I don't know if anyone said it, but there is a really good Instagram to follow besides the alumni Instagram. It's the Richmond Experience. They have like a paid thing that you can subscribe to that gives you like a weekly newsletter about things that are going on. But if you just follow the Instagram, they post at least weekly about different things that are going on or different giveaways. And they have, I'm pretty sure they just put out a list for people that are new to the city that's like free to view on their website. So besides asking one of us, there's a lot of, there's that option that you can get a lot of resources from.
I'll give one specific example because there are so many places you can go depending on what you're looking for. But there is one mojito in this town, and it's at Havana, and and it's inexpensive. It's $5. It's always been $5 since I've been of age, and I'll say like it's also special for me because I went there for my 21st. But it's all open air, so during these times, like the windows are open. There's a large outdoor seating area. And so if that's kind of the thing you're looking for, I can't speak to the menu. I've only had an appetizer there, but in normal times, they also do a salsa night where they teach you how to dance. So if you're a little rhythmically challenged like myself, you can get some good lessons there for not a high price at all later on.
I think that's a $5 cover, and you can step on somebody's feet for $5 like I do, but it's a blast. Also, and this ties to the last question about sort of expenses. You should be very excited, especially if you are from the Northeast or DC. When you come to Richmond, life is cheaper down here. So that is sort of in comparison to some of your friends who will visit from DC, they might say, oh my gosh, you paid, let's say $3 for a coffee instead of $7. Wow, that's incredible. So just be, I guess, excited for that. And then another Q&A question just came in. What is the best date spot, fancy, casual, or both? So anybody want to take it?
This doesn't really, it's during COVID, so their inside is closed, but the Jasper in Carytown, date or not, it's a really cool place to get cocktails. And I mean, they're, I guess, a little on the higher end side in terms of price, but they're worth it. And sorry, there's traffic going on outside my window. Perks of living in the fan. But yeah, the Jasper is a really good place for that. It's got a really cool, there's cool like decor and stuff. And the cocktails are fantastic. But really, yeah, and I think Carytown would be a good place for, I guess, fancy and casual dates.
Another good one is the Quirk Hotel. They have some pretty good food. So you can, if you want to stay downstairs, you can be a little bit more fancy, maybe have dinner downstairs and then have a drink on their rooftop bar. And that's a little bit more casual, or you can just go straight to the rooftop to have a straight casual date. But there's a lot of places pretty much all around that have rooftop bars that are really easy, especially maybe on a first date or something. But I know there's Quirk has a lot of really good food as well.
I was going to say the Quirk. But just jumping to, I guess, casual options too. We've talked a lot about Richmond's bar scene, but Richmond also has incredible coffee shops. So there are just, a ton, and always a good place to meet somebody and learn more about them, especially now that we're all sort of outside. Most of the coffee shops have some kind of an outdoor component. My favorite does not, unfortunately, but oh well. Tyler, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, so there's if y'all haven't subscribed to like the RTD, there's a woman by the name of Carrie Pfeiffer who writes for the RTD, and she covers in depth like different places. Like she'll do like an article on a new restaurant that's open, what the concept is and like what you're looking for. And if you have an RTD subscription, you can actually like go through and see like, oh, this restaurant is good for this restaurant is good for that. And so if you're looking for a specific sort of vibe, like maybe you want to take somebody on a first date, you might find it in one of those articles or on the Richmond Experience, as Casey was pointing out. But a nice casual date spot is Food Dog. It's owned by the same people who own Fat Dragon. And it's a casual date spot, but it's nice. Like it's clean, like you go in there, there's like a fun seat in the window and it's like a 2-seater. And I feel like that's where a lot of people go to have their first dates. If you ever stand in line to go to Food Dog, you'll see what I'm talking about. But it's a good spot for that.
One more thing I would say is if you want to go on a date, but it's during COVID, definitely go to Libby Hill Park. If you want to go during like golden hour, it's definitely I would say it's the best view of the city. And it's just really, really nice. So I highly recommend checking it out. Even if you're not on a date, just go walk, there's some stairs you can exercise on, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I would second that. A friend of mine just got married this past weekend, and that's where they did their photos. So it's a gorgeous view. But another place for a fun date, and I think they're owned by the same people that own Food Dog, but is Pizza Beer Richmond, PBR. They have a really good outdoor space as well, and it's dog friendly. So there's a pattern here with all of my recommendations, but dogs, they have cornhole, things of that nature. So really good pizza, and they have really good drink deals as well.
Cool. All right, we're getting toward the end of the hour, so just want to move to a different set of questions, and we can be sort of quick with this. But just anything that you wish you knew about living in Richmond that you now know that, you know, as soon as you got here that you definitely wanted to know. Or even, I guess, we can expand the question to if you were a graduating senior or you just started sort of your post-grad life, what would you tell a brand new person to adulting?
I've learned a lot just by walking around. Sounds crazy enough, but I just walked around my neighborhood. I've lived here for a month now in Chocolate Bottom, and I just walked around my neighborhood in the Churchill area for the first time on foot, and like not driving around, not going to a specific spot. And I've learned just a lot about what's around. Like you'll find a new coffee shop, a new pizza place, a new convenience store, a new park, or just a nice place to go and sit. Uh, I did the same thing in the Fan. If you just walk around whatever neighborhood you end up in, it'll teach you a lot. It's kind of nice and relaxing to do that too.
This might sound kind of lame, but I think like knowing that things like aren't as far as they seem. Like I think when you're in college, you know, like getting off campus kind of felt like a chore, just because it does feel kind of, you know, far from the city. But I think you know, kind of like we've been saying, everything that you want to do is super close. I mean, you know, probably within 15 minutes you can be to so many different kinds of destinations. So I think like, you know, trying to get out of your bubble and you know, just find those different things to do and really just taking advantage of exploring, because I think coming from UR's campus to the rest of the city is kind of like moving to a new place because there is so much different stuff to do.
And kind of going off of that, one thing that I wish I either listened to, because I'm sure someone told me this, or just really tried to comprehend, is that living in the city of Richmond is not the same as going to school at U of R, for the same reason that Casey said, that, you know, being at U of R is somewhat in a bubble. And so there really is, I mean, people that live in the city, even probably on like Casey's block or on Ken's block or Michael's block, like there could be college kids, there could be young grads, there could be a 50-year-old couple. Like you never know who you're going to run into. And I think there's just so many more types of people, types of things to do than what you see as a student. So there's really a lot to do, and it's a completely different city once you graduate and sort of open your eyes to all that it has to offer.
And I definitely agree with all three things that were just said. And I think that you need to definitely be intentional as you're looking for things to do and people to meet, because if you aren't intentional, you might get stuck in your bubble, and that will get old. And that happens whether you live in Richmond or you live in New York City with 11 million people. So just, you know, be intentional. And I think that when you're at, you know, most of you are probably 21, 22. When you're at that age, everybody's sort of in the same position for the last time almost in their life, where everybody's just, or, you know, of college grads, everybody's just graduated, everybody's got their first job, everybody is sort of dealing with the same issues. So use your friends and don't be afraid, sort of like freshman year, where don't be afraid to reach out to people, because like Casey said, you know, we're a southern city and the hospitality is mostly present, you know, especially in day-to-day interactions. So use that to your advantage. So if there aren't any Q&A, any more Q&A questions, anything else, panelists, that you definitely have to say to people before we log off? Other than make sure to follow the alumni pages on social media and to come to events once it's safe to?
I would say, like, don't be afraid to reach out, because I think I, like, when I first started my job and moved into my apartment, I was afraid to, like, you know, say hey to my neighbors, or like, you know, really be intentional about you know, organizing something to do with my coworkers or my neighbors or something like that. So I think you know, like Ken said, take advantage of that opportunity before you're like, I'm too old to do this. You're never too old to do that. But, you have that special feeling when you're like first out of college that you really can reach out because everything is brand new. And I would also say, this is niche, but Richmond is very dog friendly because I got a quarantine puppy. So if you're like wanting to get a dog, huge responsibility, but Richmond is, there's so many opportunities to take your dog everywhere. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
And one thing I will say, since this is a U of R hosted event, don't be afraid, going off of what Casey said, like everyone is in the same boat as you are. And I think that some of the people that I'm closest to now are also Richmond grads, but I was not close to them when I was in school. So most of the people that I was good friends with moved to DC, moved to New York City. And so the Richmond crew that I hang out with now are people that I was not the closest to in school. So don't be afraid to make those relationships or, build upon relationships that you thought you might have had in college, because this can turn out to be the best ones.
I totally agree with that. Two of my best friends in Richmond are people that I did not meet. Well, one I met the first day of school at Playfair, where you did like touch fingers with people, which was super weird looking back. But then the other one I met junior year, and again, they're two of my best friends here. So you really do get that bond because we do a lot of they're not weird, but they're very Richmond specific things, right? So anything else, Michael?
Just enjoy the outdoors while you can, especially while the sun is still shining. We might have just hit that sweet spot where it's not humid anymore outside. We're getting close to fall after all, but there's a lot to do. I've been fortunate enough to run into some old colleagues from school just around the city. I saw Ken at Kroger just before the Super Bowl, I think, a couple months ago, for example. And this is really a special city. So, if you find a place that you really like, treat it well, patronize them, be a good customer. And sometimes I found out that just recently I found out that if you go to a store frequently enough, they'll ask you if you want to stock anything, and then they'll keep that thing for you. But don't be afraid to branch out. There's benefits to being a regular, and there's benefits to branching out and finding new things to do.
Cool. Well, thanks again to our panelists who have been great tonight and given some really good advice. And also thank you to all of you who are, again, out in Zoom land and wherever you are. And we're glad that you joined us, and make sure to tell your friends if they're moving to Richmond to look at this panel for some helpful advice. I think all of us are pretty comfortable with, you reaching out to the alumni board, or I'm comfortable with you reaching out to me personally if you want. I won't speak for all the panelists there, but if you ever need something Richmond related, just let me know. Also, make sure to, again, check out the Richmond social media because it is very important. And as COVID, Lord willing, ends soon, right? There's going to be some good stuff going on. So, and also there's a lot of great virtual programming in the meantime. And again, thanks for coming, and stay safe, everybody, and go Spiders. Take care.